Forktales, a podcast that feeds ideas to the food and beverage world. Forktales is brought to you by Vigor, a branding and advertising agency focused on the restaurant and hospitality industry, and by Quench, a food and beverage advertising agency that specializes in evolving iconic food and beverage brands. Learn more, visit vigorbranding.com and quenchagency.com. If you love what we're serving up, please give Forktales a 5-star review on your podcast service of choice. Think of it as a tip for good service.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Forktales. Today we're joined by a good friend of mine, Sean Zecman. Sean is the executive chairman of National Food Group, a powerhouse in the food distribution industry. National Food Group supplies food to everything from grade school to sports stadiums to correctional facilities, which is my favorite. We're going to talk about that and a lot more. Sean, welcome to Forktales and thank you for joining me.
Hey, Michael. Well, I'm so happy to be here and to join you today and spend some time. Looking forward to it.
Very cool. Okay, so before we jump into the interview, take a few minutes, talk about yourself a little bit, how you kind of came up through the business, a little bit about National Food Group and, what you guys do.
Sure. So Sean Zecman, second generation family business. My dad started our company in 1990, literally in the basement of his home in Livonia, Michigan. And he had a phone and a computer before there was even computers, and he just started picking up the phone, and he had 30 years of food distribution experience and decided, he instead of working for the man, he was gonna chart his own course, and did that on September 1st, 1990. I went away to college, came back from college, and joined the family business in 1996. And so what National Food Group does is we specialize in distribution to schools and prisons nationwide. So think of every K-12 school in America. We in some way participate in feeding them. And in every prison in America, county, state, and federal prison, and even detention facilities now, we participate in trying to help feed those guests. We take a national presence. So every state in America, our furthest ship points are Alaska and Hawaii. So there's prisons and schools out there that we support. And that's really our market. We're very niche in that space. So I bought the business from my dad in 2003. He had enough and wanted to sell to a competitor. And I'm not the world's smartest man, but I knew that wasn't a good idea for me, or wasn't going to work well for me. So we were able to match that offer that the competitor was offering my dad, and I bought that company in 2003, and been on a heck of a run ever since.
Yeah, I know. I mean, your growth is amazing. So, what were sales like back in 2003?
So the year I bought the company from my dad, we were doing $16 million in annual revenue, and last year we did over $240 million.
Yeah, it's crazy.
With one small acquisition in the mix that we tucked in. So almost all of it was organic growth, truly just building in those two markets of schools and prisons.
That's fantastic. I was just thinking, like, maybe in those like little applesauce cups in the schools, you could put a little positive note to them so that they don't end up in prison. Maybe for the prisoners, you could look at, I told you so,
an affirmation, little affirmations do unto others as you would do unto you. Yeah, no, it's funny. We've thought and done that, and it actually, in the prison market, they don't like that. They want to have more real food. So it's, we've actually had customers that request stuff like that. It's, if you've thought it, we've probably done it somewhere along the process.
That's awesome. Well, I've been fortunate. I've been to your offices and really impressed by the dedication to innovation and company culture, and I'll say fun, but in a business sense. I mean, just really kind of a very positive vibe when you walk in your building, and I think that's super, super important. Credit to you.
Yeah, and I have to actually give a little credit to my dad. And he started it. When his first 30 years in his career, he worked for a food distributor that was in a very dark place. It was just a dark office, carpet on the walls, heavy furniture, everything that you could think of in the 1970s and 80s that you would think of as a not a fun place to work. And when he started his business, he wanted windows, and he found a small office, and couldn't be a larger window in the city, and with sunlight coming in. And I remember when I first started working with him, being in that environment. I've always wanted to have a place where there's color. If you're going to spend most of your life there working and spending time, it should be a happy place. It should have color. It should have sunlight. It should be something that gives you warmth when you walk in the door, and I think
No
that's
doubt.
important. And you know, we put our culture everywhere in our office. Our core values, our philanthropy, our product photos, our brands are all over our office, reminding the purpose of what we're doing. Even our customers, you know, whether they're prisons or they're school kids, there's pictures of them in our office, celebrating them, reminding us what we do every day and why we get up.
That's great. That's great. And you have a tree house, right? Or the clubhouse.
The clubhouse, yes, it's officially clubhouse. This open air conference room that's just fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. So, okay, you mentioned in a video that I saw that you're on track to more than double your 20. That's your goal, is to double your 2021 revenue by 2026. What are some of the things that you're doing to make that growth happen?
So we're all about innovation. So we have food scientists, we have dietitians. We're talking to our customers. You know, I always thought sales is about solving a customer's problem. There, you know, and in our space, there's a nutritional issue. There might be a food safety issue. There is a price point issue. There is an acceptance issue. So what are the customers' issues? What are pain points? How can we solve them and make them better? And that's the innovation that we're doing. So we're trying to get in front of our customers, love our customers. You know, where's your pain points? Tell us about them, and then we go back and we try to solve for that. So making products more nutritious, less costly, enhanced, smaller size, larger size, whatever it needs to be, we're back with our team. And I think you had an opportunity to see our innovation center. I mean, we have test kitchens in our office where we're actually formulating and making product. So it's all about product formulation, product innovation, and not you know what we did yesterday doesn't matter. It's what we're doing in the future that's important.
That's awesome. Well, it's hard too. I mean, with this growth that you've had, and you know, you get bigger and you get bigger, it's hard to stay agile and responsive. How have you been able to do that? Is it really just talking to the customers and really listening to them, and innovation? Is that basically the key to the agility?
You know, it is. It's surrounding yourself with great people. Our team members, we don't want stagnation. And, you know, while we've always done it like that. That's not an acceptable phrase at our company. I mean, how can we do something different? Let's fail. It's okay to fail. We have a fail first culture at our organization. So if we get into something and it doesn't work, you know, I entered CPG and we did retail, and we tried it for 4 years, and we invested significant amounts of money. We were, I don't remember the final store count, but, you know, 20,000 stores nationwide we were in, and we failed. And that's great. We went all in. We tried it. We did something new. We loved the experience. But when we realized that we weren't everything our customer needed, and we couldn't do it at a high level, we pulled back and decided that you know, our resources were better spent elsewhere. So we embrace failure, identifying it, and then pivoting to something else.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, like, go ahead.
No, just another story on innovation that was coming to mind. One of our big customers down in Texas, this was many years ago. They, you know, because of the peanut issues in schools, that we were doing a sales call, and they did not want to have kids bringing in school cupcakes anymore, or school cookies, or you know, the mom would make or the dad would make these cupcakes or the cookies, and they'd bring them in and you pass them around to celebrate birthdays. And you know, they said this was our problem. So we were there, and we were like, well, how can we solve for this issue and solve that problem? And we ended up coming up with birthday cake applesauce back in the time. And it was actually our customers' innovation of saying, hey, our problem is mom and dad, we don't want them to bring in, because of food safety issues, those products, but how do we celebrate birthdays in the classroom? So by developing that product and creating, you know, that amazing item, they're still singing happy birthday, it tastes like birthday. We brought them in, we did, I don't know, 20 versions of birthday cake applesauce, got the customer to participate in the flavor ideation of the products, the design on the outside of the packaging. Now it's one of our most popular products all
That's
across the
awesome.
country. Kids are singing happy birthday, but it would never have happened had it not been for that customer.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You were talking too about the retail side and the branded side. It's funny, like I've noticed this a lot at Quench, doing CPG. I feel like there's a lot of manufacturers out there, right? And a lot of guys will do contract manufacturing. And then there's brands out there. And some people can do both, but it's always funny. The contract manufacturer wants to own a brand because they think there's more profit there and they can own something. And the brand people want to own the machines because they feel like they can create a better quality control. They can maybe save on costs and everything else. And, but there's issues with both sides of that, right? There's issues on both sides that we have to deal with that are realities, right?
Yeah, the specifications in my core markets of prisons and schools are very different than the specifications and the needs and the wants at a traditional CPG
Right.
store. And I thought, well, if every kid in America in a school is eating my applesauce or our applesauce, our products there, and it of course is going to translate into a Walmart, a Target, a Kroger, and it doesn't. The sizing is off, the calories are off, the packaging was slightly off, and it doesn't always work out.
Yeah. Yeah. And your approach there was smart though. I thought that was very savvy though. Kids are getting in school. I mean, they're going to recognize that there's something magical about that connection.
But at the same time, we're really good in the school and the correctional space.
Yeah.
Do what you're good at, and
Right.
that's what we were good at. And it doesn't mean you don't stretch and you don't try to get into new markets. But we probably went too far in and didn't lift our head up quick enough to look around and see where we're at. We probably should have started much smaller and incrementally built our CPG business. Doesn't mean we're not going to try it again. I still got a little itch, but I'm not yet ready to scratch it. So
Yeah. No, I totally respect that. So what makes your approach to food distribution unique? I mean, compared to the competitors? I mean, the US Foods out there, Cisco's, all these guys. I mean, there's all these different food competitors out there.
They're broadliners, and I think it's right in the name, being a broadliner. They supply, and they do an amazing job. They supply everything in a restaurant or a facility, from the toilet paper to the lettuce and everything in between. And what we do differently is our two core customer bases, prisons and schools. That's all we do. Our nutritional, our ingredients, our flavor profile, our food safety, our packaging is all geared towards those customer segments. So when you do that and intimately, hey, that's going to be a food safety issue for a correctional facility, we've solved for that this way, or this is the nutritional requirements for a school, we solve for this way. It's not like I'm breaking out a book and saying, chicken nugget 92731 is your chicken nugget. We're developing those products to meet our customers' needs and specifications. So we supply broadliners, our very specific products, for those schools and prisons in some cases, if they do the final mile. And it's being customer experts. It's knowing your customer. It's understanding their needs.
So in some cases, you're not going direct to a school. You're going through maybe with the distributors. Almost, are you like white labeling it or just creating a product for them?
It's still in our brand, but in some cases, their school districts have central warehouses that then distribute the products down to the schools. But still, in a lot of cases, they're using one of the broadliners to do the final mile. So we partner up with a broadliner, we ship in truckloads of product there, and then they do the daily deliveries into each individual schools. I mean, I don't know the count of New York schools, but it's in the thousands of how many different elementaries and middle schools and high schools there is.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Do you see any major shifts happening in the food distribution industry? Anything that separates you guys from others?
Labor is really the big thing ever since COVID. We've lost so much labor in both in prisons and schools. It's a very necessary job, and there are heroes, but there's not as many people who want to get into that space. Those are hard jobs to fill. So how can we make our products easier to serve, to distribute to the end user, And is there less cooking that can be done? Can we do fully cooked items in some cases so they don't even have to cook the product? Can we look at thaw and serve, overwrapped packaging, items like that we're seeing to try to save that labor. So I would think that is probably the biggest thing. We're cleaner labels, of course. Less, we're told both things sometimes when we go into a sales call. We said, well, we want less packaging, but we need something that's easier to hand out to the end user. Those are in conflict at a lower cost. So we have to thread those needles and try to figure out which items we can, where's your real pain? Is it cost? Is it labor? Is it packaging? But cleaner labels, reduce labor. That's where we're seeing it.
Very cool. Well, one of National Food Group's missions is to reduce food waste. I mean, how are you approaching that? That's always a top issue.
I feel like we were in the ugly food business before there was ugly food. A lot of the products that we do, especially in the prison market, are what we call opportunity buys. So they're cosmetically imperfect. Every time you have a slice of salami or bologna or whatever, there are those end pieces of those logs. The manufacturers haven't figured out how to get rid of those end pieces. So you have end pieces of salami. And what do you do with that? Well, we work with partners to chop that product up, and we serve it as a chopped salami or chopped bologna, chopped ham. We do a lot of work with close dated product of eggs and other items like that you open up your fridge. Best by day is not an expiration date. It is a best by date. So you can take close dated items and repurpose them, further process them. We've had situations where there is discontinued or end of season Christmas minty cookie dough, and then how do we repurpose that with our customer base to turn those into brownies? So it's all about taking ugly food sometimes, or food that can't go to its intended recipients, and repurpose it. In some cases, reprocess it at other processors, and then redistribute it to our customers. And ugly food is a thing. I mean, we're one of the largest suppliers of applesauce in America. Apples. The pretty apples are going to your local grocers. Sometimes the imperfect ones aren't. And if we can grab those and process those into correctional applesauce, that's a win for everybody. I'm shocked at the amount of fruit that is shaken to the ground in America still to this day, and there's still homeless and hungry people in America. Whatever we can do to bridge that gap and take food that's being produced and get it to the end users is what we need to do.
Yeah, that totally tracks. I mean, at Quench, every year we do our annual food and beverage trends, and I think it was probably 5 years ago, was the whole ugly fruit movement, because just before that was a lot about like Whole Foods was taking over, and you'd walk into Whole Foods and you'd have 30 different varietals of apples, and they all looked like they were photoshopped. They were all absolutely perfect, and you had to ask yourself, well, geez, for this 80 apples that are sitting here in this one style, where are all the ugly ones with blemishes, and where do they go? I mean, so I mean, it only made sense, and that became a very big trend is ugly fruit. And I mean, it's great. I mean, because look, there's the food waste in this country, and to your point, very well said, how there's so many people that still need food, and there's all these food deserts. And then here we have all this waste, and you got to bridge those things. So what is the barrier to fixing and reducing food waste? What's the biggest barrier to that?
I think it's education. I think it goes back to educating people. I mean, I have a battle. I love my wife to death, but we will open the fridge. She'll say this has a best by date on this package. And I will argue for 15 minutes that there's nothing wrong with that salad dressing, that cheese. There's one little piece of blue on a piece of cheese. Let's cut it off. And that's still consumable. And so it's local education in our homes, and I think it's global education that a best by date is not always a dead date for a product. Listen, I'm in the food business 35 years. Food safety is my number one priority. Like, there's nothing more important than food safety. But there is education as it relates to, if something has been indefinitely frozen, it is still wholesome. It doesn't turn bad in a frozen state.
Right.
So how can how can that be used? In Michigan here, the cherry crop is very near and dear to us. I don't remember the exact figure. I'm going to make up a number, but it's darn close to right. I think something like 15 million pounds last year of cherries were shaken to the ground in Michigan because there was not demand for the supply that was out on the crops. That's a sin.
Hmm.
15 million pounds, we literally shook to the ground, and people are going hungry. How do we?
Hmm.
How I understand. How do we make it advantageous for those growers to recapture those products, and how can we get them to people who need food?
Hmm.
I know cherries isn't going to solve all the problems in the world, but we've got to figure out how to bridge some of these things where there's just products out there that can be
Well, it's
consumed.
cherries in Michigan's. It can be apples in Wisconsin. You know, I mean, there's all. I mean, it's just everywhere, right? I mean, there's
Yes.
all kinds of issues that we could address. So, the sustainability trends or practices, are there any of those out there that you see that are really gaining traction in the next 5 years?
It's and again, it's reduction of packaging. At the same time, how do we make it more handheld and friendly? We're everywhere we can. We're trying to minimize our on our cardboard. We're trying to go to a lesser mill on our plastic cups wherever it makes sense to shave any additional packaging off that we can. We're looking at new technologies where we can use paper products, more recyclable products. Some items it works in, some items it doesn't. Um, yes, everybody is looking at it and doing everything possible, but there's still certain. I mean, we keep using the applesauce as an example. It's a big item of ours, but people still want their applesauce sent to them in a package that doesn't slosh on them, and that can hold up and be driven across the country. So it's threading the needle of that. Whatever we can do on orders to reduce air in cases. So the most compact case possible, we're looking at doing that. We're doing from the standpoint of prison fruit, we're doing more and more pouch products. Pouch products package better in a cardboard case than cans do. You think about 6 cans in a case, there's a lot of air around those cans. Pouches, we can do them much more condensed. The
Hmm.
cardboard goes over. I just watched something fascinating on Amazon that what Amazon's goal is that every cardboard that, if they ship this pen, they want the cardboard to go around the pen, and that is what they ship. Every box is custom to the product they ship. Like right now, I'll order this pen and it'll come in a 30-pound case, it feels like, in one pen shaking around inside the case or one box. And the packaging's too big. So how do we, how do we reduce that package, get more products on a truck, and reduce our carbon footprint? So I think we're all looking at that.
Yeah, yeah. That's you're right, and boy, there's a lot of cardboard coming through Amazon, isn't there?
Just drive up and
Oh yeah,
drive up and down
some
our
street.
street
Yeah,
on trash day. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
It's
That's
absolutely
amazing.
insane.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, at Quench, we do our annual food trends every year. You've been a contributor. We've gotten information for you, which is phenomenal, and I always appreciate that. How important, is tracking trends for your company, and how do you do it? Like, does it come from data? You talked about talking to your customers, which is really smart. Or suppliers insights? Are they coming from suppliers, or where are you getting your information on trends, and how important is that?
Well, I have to say that every year when we meet and at the YPO conference, and I get your information from Quench, it's one of the first places we start. It's a gut check. You do a much broader deck of information, but we look at there, and that's always been such a useful piece to us. We're talking to our customers. Salsa is a great example, or barbecue sauce. You could use either one of them.
Hmm. Hmm.
What is it? What is popular in Texas is not the same flavor and profile that's going to be popular in the Carolinas, and that's going to be popular in Michigan or California. So understanding regional differences, understanding is Asian cuisine on the uptick or downtick, and what trying to get in front of that and understand that. Talking to customers, what are they looking for? Are we talking is sweet? Is sweet in or is savory in this year? And do
Hmm.
they want us to develop more products? And then it's about being fast to market. some of these trends, as you know, um, they're 1 year trends, and then some things are 10 year and forever thing that becomes new norms. So identifying or trying to identify, which is always fun. What's a short-term trend and what's long-term sustainable product? We're trying to understand and then get to market fast. So our process is we test not only in prisons all of our products, but we test all of them in schools. So we got to get the products in front of the customers. Is it too much spice? Strawberry banana, are we? Is it? Does it taste like strawberry applesauce? Is it too much banana? What's the right mix? And it's funny, even geographically, we can, we'll send products down to Texas, Florida, California, New York, just to get all the points in the corners, and the feedback can be wildly different. It's on that where on how they like products, and then at the end of the day, we have to pick something and go to market and go fast, unfortunately, because the trend could be over quickly, or you don't want to die with the analysis of it all. So
Yeah, and I mean, a short-term trend can just be a fad. But are you guys okay with that? Like, so for instance, if I'm just making this up, like if sriracha is a huge flavor profile, I mean, like, is that worth you guys jumping into it for, say, a year, if it's going to be replaced in a year from now? Or is it something like you need to really find something that's going to be more long-term because of the whole process of manufacturing?
it depends on the product line. So
Okay.
certain items are much quicker to market. If I was to do an applesauce, a fruit cup, we could get to market in 90 to 180 days, depending on packaging, printing, all of that stuff, and formula development. If it's one of our yogurt lines, if it's a nutrition bar, if it's one of our meat sticks, if it's one of our meals, our prepackaged meals into a prison, that development could take 6 months to a year. So a flavor like sriracha is fun. We can get in, we can get out, we can do some development, we can fail fast or get a home run. That's awesome. The more complicated the flavor, the harder the sourcing the ingredients, the longer that we have to look at the ROI, whether
Sure.
makes a lot of sense.
That actually makes sense for sure. Well,
Yeah,
what are some of the bigger trends that you're watching right now? Is there anything exciting that you're looking at that you can talk about?
you know, it's really more handheld products. So we're seeing less labor, so people are wanting more cupped product. So there's the demand for even more cupped product. In the prison space, we'll pivot for a minute and talk about the prison space. Religious meals are absolutely on fire in the prison space.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the growth of halal and kosher meals has grown exponentially. So developing those products for those guests. Additionally, in the prison space, what they've realized is they don't have traditional Blue Cross Blue Shield. The state is responsible for their healthcare costs. So how do we have enjoyable items with less sodium, less sugar? They're very focused on health smart products in correctional facilities. So reducing the trans fat, eliminating trans fat, lowering calories, adding vitamins, while at the same time, one of their few pleasures they get are flavors and going to the cafeteria, eating a meal. So how do we take items like sriracha and have that make that a very flavorful meal, but at the same time reducing the nutritional the bad things nutritional, the calories, the fat, so it's a healthier product while making it a flavorful product. I mean, that's what we're seeing, and getting that into the product line and developing it. So
Well,
it's
you brought up,
tremendous.
yeah, and you brought up a great point earlier. You know, the clientele may want a more sustainable package. They want a smaller package, but they want it to be less expensive. I mean, they want all these things. So, I mean, like when it comes down to the trend, I mean, there's health centric, right? Better healthy products. There's sustainability of it, okay, sustainable products, and environmentally responsible products. Which one is? I guess are they all as important as each other? Is there one that's more important? And oh, by the way, price. You know, I want to get the lowest
Sure.
possible price.
So the real truth is, as a company that likes to service our customer base and be very deep into our we have to offer all three. And so we have to have option A, B, and C. We have multiple brands that then represent your cheap and cheerful, your high end, and then you're in the middle of the road. So you really need to have all three or be able to supply all three to your customers base because not well, you know. What did Ford say? I'll have any color you want of Model T as long as it's black. That doesn't
Yep.
work in that doesn't work in our industry. We have to supply those different product iterations to our customers. So we have to have all three. I can't say, if you ask me this week, I'm hearing the word price a lot. But we're sitting in early Q1 of 2025. That's on top of mind with the inflation and everything else that's going on. So pricing right now is the number one thing. There is time where food safety, during COVID, it was food safety. We were all about food safety. Price was important, but getting products to the end user in a safe manner, packaged well, that's critical. Um, During the Obama administration, we spent a lot of time talking about nutrition, especially in the school space. Michelle Obama's key initiative was all about child nutrition feeding. So we focused on that. And I mean, the administration did a tremendous job reducing the sodium, reducing the fat, creating better guidelines for school kids. So we were in front of all of those initiatives. When they thought of an initiative, we started development on that space. So even the last administration that just came into office, we know that, hey, one of the first things that was eliminated was red 4 out of the so all of our items before, even into last year, we started eliminating all of those food colorings in all of our products, knowing that was coming down the pipe, so we can get in front of it. And the rule doesn't go in effect for 18 months, but we're not going to wait for the rule to hit. We're going to get in front of that and try to be industry leaders. So, our customers want to be able to go to school boards, to the warden, whoever it may be who's in charge, and say, "Hey, we're doing the right thing. We're ahead of the curve. We're on top of our game," and we try to allow our customers to do that and get in front of that.
That's excellent. So, I mean, that was like one of my next questions about transparency and clean labels. I mean, that's something that in the CPG world with Quench, we see that in our food brands all the time. People
Yeah.
want clean labels and transparency, but I guess in your business, it's just as important.
It's just as important. I have a 21-year-old daughter and a 19-year-old son. They look at labels. I mean, this is a different. When I was a kid, I didn't know what a nutritional label was or a calorie, and
Right.
until probably college, I finally figured out what a calorie was. That is not the way it is anymore. You have
Right.
young kids. We go and we watch kids all the time in school doing food testing and taking our products off the line. They're looking at the ingredients. They're looking at the label. They are informed consumers. We've been at food cuttings, and we're using different things for coloring now. We're using beet extract, cherries, in some cases to get reds in products and pinks and,
Mm-hmm.
and other products. We're using roots to try to get blues and other products. They're looking at it and they're saying, "There's beet in this product," and I'm like, "Try it first before we judge. Like, let's try it." And they try it, like it's really good. So the consumer is so much more educated now, at a such younger age. They're very they're looking at the vitamins, they're looking at the calories, they're looking at the fat content. In the prison space, where they're doing the same thing. They're concerned, about healthcare. They're concerned about fat, and if you have a religious need, they're concerned that there is no pork in their meals, or it has been produced in a halal friendly environment. People care about what they're putting in their body. That's not going away. I think that's, if there was a trend here to stay, what you put in your body. Listen, we all indulge and we all give ourselves forgiveness to indulge on certain things, whatever your thing is, and I think that's great. But when they're not indulging, they're very specific on what they want to consume.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're right. I mean, that is here to stay. That's for sure. So, interesting. You bring up, your K through 12. We have the correctional institutions, senior living facilities, universities, sports teams. You have all these different sort of venues, if you will. Is there a lot of? I mean, other than food, is there a lot of similarities? I mean, are we using some of the same products in the same places, or are these really sort of unique to each of these categories? Is your product offering kind of unique to each category? Is there a ton of crossover, a lot of crossover? Or?
Sure. Sure. So we started in the correctional space. My dad started our business in 1990, servicing Michigan prisons, and that's where we cut our teeth. That's where we started our business, and then we grew our correctional space in the Midwest. And then we said, well, outside of, and now we're talking the 90s. Outside of prisons, where's the next captive audience that could use 4x6 pizza or whatever it is that you would serve in a prison? And the next space in that was back in the 90s was a K-12 school. The same 4x6 in the 90s pizza you would serve in a prison is what would serve in a school. What's changed over my career is that has separated. The needs and desires of prisons and schools, they are very different, usually different ages, usually different funding avenues of where they're getting their funding. It's not the same 4x6 pizza. Not one is better or worse, they're just tailored differently depending on the market. So we service applesauce, canned applesauce, actually pouched applesauce in prisons. We do cupped applesauce in schools. There may be the same base formula, but the vehicle that we're delivering the product in, a cup or a pouch, is very different into both venues. So the products are different, but they're the same. If that all makes sense.
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah. I mean, religious meals are very important in schools, but not like it is in prison. That is a huge growth for our industry. Um, School kids have more choice than I think inmates do. So you have to play to that. Kids eat with their eyes. Our products, specifically our brand ZZ's, is very kid friendly, very popping with the color, very flavorful. We're trying to get, if they can choose between a banana, an apple, or an applesauce, we want them to grab that applesauce or that nutrition bar or that dried fruit, whatever it is. So we're going to work with that packaging. We're going to make sure that the nutritional, if they're going to read the back of the label, that's easy to read, because we know that's what that demographic's doing. So they're very similar, but they're also very different.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Are there any of the venues or these categories that have surprised you in terms of like a demand for creative food solutions?
It reminds me of a story. If you'll give me 3 seconds on a story. This is about 15 years ago. One of our salespeople runs into my office. He was a correctional salesperson, and he says, "Sean, we got a real problem." And I said, "Well, what's the problem?" He goes, "Well, we have this correctional customer, and they take a truck every other day of juice, and it's a plastic cup of juice with a metal lid, and the inmates are cooking their drugs using the metal foil on top of the cup in the prison. We have to find another solution." And I would have never thought in my career that the packaging of a fruit cup was being used for contraband. It begs the question: my juice is the problem, not the drugs. But here nor there. As a company, we're here to serve our customers, and we ended up doing a paper gable type juice product for our customer at that, like you would think of a milk carton. So we solved the problem at a significant price increase to the customer, because that paper was more sustainable, but was also more expensive. And we had to solve the problem. So talk about having to be creative. Like these, sometimes when we do development of products, we don't understand always the intended, or the how the product is going to be used, though we thought we knew how the product would be used, and sometimes it's being used differently. And that's an extreme example, but even just from consumption, you come up with breakfast for dinner. I mean, there's a lot of items that we make on a far less extreme example where we have breakfast in mind. We're going to do a chicken and waffle or a waffle type product, and it's being served for dinner or lunch.
Oh, sure.
So it's our customers who tell us when we have a winner and when we have a loser for our product development, and when we have when they're having a challenge due to an unintended consequences of one of our products, then it's our responsibility, and we love that. We love the challenge of, okay, you have a problem. There's there's a cooking situation going on in the cell. How do we pivot and eliminate that problem for you? And we did that. And that's, I mean, that's the fun part of my job, is getting up every morning and trying to figure out stuff like that and how we can solve those problems.
That's really cool. It reminds me too, when you were talking about the school students, I remember the food trends. This is going back some years, but we were talking about international flavors. And what we found out in our research was that a lot of people were children can influence the parents' buying decisions in the grocery store. Okay. So what the students and the children now, they're like mixed nationalities. You go to a school and it's like, you talk about halal or kosher, or it can be any ethnicity, right? It can be Indian food, whatever, whoever's in that school. Well, the kids, they're just curious. Like, hey, what's that? What is that you're eating? And what is that? So they tried it, and it was amazing how the students' lunches would drive, and trying things would drive experimentation at home. Mom was going out to get whatever, some kind of an Indian type cuisine because their daughter had it at lunch and really liked it. So it was really a kind of a neat driver. So to have kids pushing that, to your point, they're very, very food aware,
They are. And I mean, I think going to the grocery store is becoming more of a family experience, or at least in mine it is. And even my son, he goes to Ole Miss. He came home for Christmas, and we're out grocery shopping, and he's like, I'm going to try this Indian flavor and this Indian cuisine and this. And you're like, who are you? And because before he went away to college, he probably would have passed. And now he's exploring something. He brings it into the family, and everybody at the table is trying what he has created that evening, and it's delicious. And we're all getting to experience that. And you're absolutely right, kids, because we get set in our ways as plus 50 plussers. The kids bring in those new things. They're putting new things in the cart all the time. And, I'm trying Celsius for the first time. My kids started buying the Celsius drink. I'm like, what the heck is this thing? I'm loving this stuff. I drink it. I'm not drinking coffee anymore. I'm drinking the Celsius thing. There's flavors. This is amazing. And, my wife is like, that's bad for you. I don't know if it is or not. I don't know. I don't care. I love it. It's my indulgence. But I would never have tried that if it wasn't for the kids. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. So you were terrific. I do have one last question. All right. So, and I ask this of everybody. So if you had one last final meal, what would you eat and why? And it can't be one of your products. So it could be a restaurant or a favorite meal somewhere, someone, somehow, someplace.
I should have thought more about this. I make can I eat my own meal? I make I make a pretty good spaghetti and meat sauce.
Nice.
And I had it for dinner last night with a glass of red wine, and I was pretty darn happy at the end of my meal last night. So was my wife. And if you're gonna ask me tonight, because I'm probably gonna have the leftovers tonight, what my last meal is, I think spaghetti with a marinara with a meat sauce, glass of wine, and a baguette. And I think you could I could call it quits right there.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Great answer. Sean, thank you so much. You were phenomenal as always. And I really do appreciate the friendship, and appreciate you being on here and sharing your story. It's excellent.
Michael, thank you. Thank you for the friendship and all of what you and Quench have done over the years. I greatly appreciate it. And you guys are thought leaders and ahead of it. And I just keep doing the great work.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.